Hello everyone, welcome back. About 10 months ago, I made a video talking about Grand Master Varka and the potential for his character. In this video, we included his talent materials, ascension materials, potential artifacts that would be good on him, his elemental type, and his weapon. Now in this video, we talked about whether Varka would be an Anemo or Cryo Claymore character. At the time of recording that video, I leaned more towards Varka being a Cryo Claymore character, as Cryo is typically used to represent physical damage DPS characters. In this video, I want to talk about a potential for an Anemo Claymore DPS, as we don't actually have an Anemo Claymore 5-star character. Our only one in the game at this point in time is Sayu, and so I think Varka would be a great addition to that roster. Now of course, I am not a game developer or designer, so some of the aspects of this kit might seem a bit broken, but I've done my best to keep it as in tune with the current roster of Genshin Impact characters, taking reference from their kits themselves. Now if you do enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and let me know down below if you like this kit for an Anemo style DPS, or if there's some changes you would like to make to the kit. Now for all the Varka fans and Genshin enthusiasts, let's get right into the video. We're going to be kicking things off with Varka's combat talents, starting with his normal attack, Favonius Bladework. If you haven't noticed, this is the exact same name that Jean has for her normal attacks, and I thought it'd be fitting to have characters cross-reference each other in their builds, as I think that's something that's really interesting. For Varka's normal charge and plunge attacks, he follows the same classic style that Eula or Ito would. Instead of doing the swinging charged attack, he drains stamina over time to perform continuous slashes, and at the end of the sequence performs a more powerful slash, whereas normal and plunge attacks stay consistent with the rest of the Genshin roster. Now it's time to dive into the unique aspects of Varka's kit, and let's start with his elemental skill, Whirlwind Sweep. Varka uses his might to spin his claymore. This spin creates a burst of wind that deals AoE Anemo damage while pulling objects and opponents towards Varka's current position. This skill is very similar to Kazuha's E, albeit without the jump and plunge attack. Varka can tap or hold this attack to perform one full spin, or hold to perform 2 full spins, unleashing greater Anemo damage over a larger AoE. I would imagine this to be very similar to how the classic Claymore charged attack spin works, or to cross-reference another game, League of Legends, I find that the spin would be very similar to the charge spin that Darius has in his Q. And so with the tap, Varka would unleash one of those spins, whereas with the hold, he would unleash 2 full spins of a Darius Q, unleashing greater Anemo damage. Let's jump into the ultimate, the Knight and the Wolf. Varka calls upon the North Winds. The North Winds infuse Varka's Claymore with Anemo, causing all attacks to deal Anemo damage. This also summons the spirit of Lupus Boreas, King of the North Wind. While summoned, Lupus Boreas will create ice shards that target opponents and deal cryo damage. This effect will be cancelled when Varka leaves the field and lasts a maximum of 10 seconds. Now this burst draws reference to something like Razor, who summons the wolf during his elemental burst. Although not transforming Varka's attacks into the wolf attacks like Razor's, I want this to be more of a spirit that lingers behind him, very similar to Godfrey and Siraj in Elden Ring. Now I want to touch on the cryo damage aspect of this burst, and the reason why it's been added. When people use long bursts such as Varka's design here, or in turn Cyno's burst and Zhao's burst, or even Razor's burst as cross-reference, a lot of the time what happens is that this burst lasts too long for your team rotation that you end up wasting a lot of time either using the character that's using the burst, or you don't get the full effect of the burst due to having to rotate to different characters to reset elemental effects. By having this extra aspect of cryo damage, in which Varka will be able to swirl with his continuous Anemo damage, this allows you to get the full effect of the burst without having to swap to another teammate so quickly. I think this also creates a very fun Claymore character that people would be very excited to play, as right now it stands, not many people find Claymore characters to be all that attractive and want to play their kits, as we can see by Eula's newest banner being one of the worst selling of all time. By having this extra bit of kit and this unique feature that no other characters had before, it would increase the pull value of Varka, wanting people to use him as a proper DPS. Now let's cover the passive talents. And I stuck with these 3 the same way normal talents go for characters, having their Ascension 1, their Ascension 4, and then a regular passive talent. The first passive talent is Long Live the Knight of Boreas. When Varka uses Whirlwind Sweep, his elemental skill, while channeling the North Winds activated by the Knight and the Wolf, his elemental burst, Varka will scatter Lupus Boreas' ice shards in a circle hitting all opponents surrounding Varka. The ice shards will only scatter one time even when using the held effect of Whirlwind Sweep. Now this second statement here is made so that when people are using the held skill of Whirlwind Sweep, which can charge up to 2 swings, I find that 2 swings scattering cryo damage across the field for an Anemo character would be a bit too broken. Therefore, limiting to only 1 scatter per elemental skill use would allow Varka to use his tap more often in his burst, therefore allowing him to use more normal attacks as opposed to spamming his elemental skill during those 10 seconds. Varka's second passive talent or ascension talent is a Leader's Heart. When activating the Knight and the Wolf, Varka's elemental burst, Varka's max HP will increase by 200% of his attack. I chose this as Varka's second ascension talent as I feel like Claymore characters have always had that some sort of bulk to them, and I want to offer Varka a bit more bulk and survivability during the course of his elemental burst. As for Varka's last passive talent, it is a new expedition. Gains 25% more rewards when dispatched on a Mondstadt expedition for 20 hours. Now of course for the third passive talent we always see it's either expedition based, crafting material based, or stamina based. And for Varka, because he's been on this expedition so long in the main story of Genshin Impact, I decided to give him an expedition based talent, therefore granting more rewards when dispatched on a Mondstadt expedition, as I feel like Varka would be a lot more familiar with the land of Mondstadt. He'd be able to gather a lot more resources efficiently for you. Now before we jump into the constellations, let me know down below what you guys think of the first set of talents for Varka. If you like them, if there's something you change. I feel like the biggest change I would like to make is maybe the HP increase based on his attack from his second ascension talent. That could either be buffed or nerfed accordingly to how strong it is for the character. Now let's get right into the constellations. Here we are with Varka's Constellation 1, the Grand Master's Will. Constellation 1 would increase the amount of spins when using Whirlwind Sweep's held effect to 3. As we mentioned before, this is Varka's elemental skill, in which he does the spinning attack that deals greater Anemo damage. By charging up to 3 spins, you can deal an even larger amount of damage, and now you have the opportunity to potentially use it in your burst to deal an even greater amount, before beginning your normal attack spam. Varka's Constellation 2 is the Knight's Crest. This constellation increases the duration of the Knight and the Wolf, Varka's elemental burst, to 15 seconds. As we saw on the talent page, Varka's burst currently lasts for 10 seconds. By upping this to 15 and continuing that cryo swirl with Varka's kit, you're able to output a lot more damage while getting an even greater effect of Varka's burst time. Albeit the one drawback to this constellation would once again come to rotations, in which you're not able to rotate fast enough to your other characters, which is why we implemented the cryo aspect of Varka's kit, allowing him to self-swirl his own damage. Varka's Constellation 3 is the 2 Winds. As most characters' Constellation 3, this increases the level of Varka's elemental skill, Whirlwind Sweep, by 3, and increases the maximum upgrade level to 15. Varka's Constellation 4 is the second last combat-based constellation. This constellation, when under the effect of the Knight and Wolf, Varka's elemental burst, increases Varka's attack speed by 25%. This constellation allows Varka to get that speedier attack that people want for Claymore characters, but it's locked behind a further constellation, therefore not making it on the initial C0, which would be kind of broken. This also allows Varka to synergize really well with Mika, giving a full 50% maximum potential to the increase of Varka's attack speed, therefore making him a really speedy Claymore attacker. Which again I'd like to highlight is what a lot of people want in their Claymore attacks, myself included. Varka's Constellation 5 is when the North Wind rises. This constellation increases the level of Varka's elemental burst, the Knight and the Wolf, by 3, therefore increasing the maximum upgrade level to 15. As for Varka's final constellation, Constellation 6, the Knight of Boreas. When under the effects of the Knight and the Wolf, Varka's elemental burst, Varka's attack increases by 50%, while attacks shred opponent Anemo resistance by 25%. By having C6, this attack increase by 50% also scales with the passive talent I gave him earlier, in which Varka's HP increases based on his attack. All in all, this entire kit is designed to play around Varka's burst, the Knight and the Wolf, much like a character like Zhao would play around his burst, or Sino would play around his burst. To me, these long-lasting bursts that create high-scale attack damage are some of my favorite ways to play Genshin. I know some other players would disagree, and let me know down below if you do. As again, this kit is nothing final. This is a complete fan theory for Genshin Impact. This is not something Hoyoverse would likely use towards building Grand Master Varka's kit, if and when we ever see him release. Now to wrap up the video, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you'd like to see me try to cover maybe a Cryo Varka build, Do let me know down below, and let me know what you think of this kit, what changes you would make to the talents and constellations, and I look forward to seeing when Varka releases, if that happens to be through version 4, maybe version 5. Hopefully we don't have to wait all the way until version 6, but I will catch you all in the next video. So long, everybody.